second Empowering Workforce session this afternoon, the strand of the day in here. And this particular one is about Workforce 2030, meeting the challenges of the next decade. What do we need from our workforce to take us through the next 10 years? So we're hoping that this is an interactive session so that you don't switch off and we can get your insight, your input, your questions, along with our esteemed panellists I'll introduce shortly. But my name is Jenny Patrickson, I'm Managing Director at ActIQ. And so obviously it's a subject close to my heart and my team's heart in terms of empowering the workforce. And particularly what I took away from this morning's session, I thought was a fantastic quote from Barracle from Our Parks, which was, qualifications don't make good coaches. So whilst ActIQ might be partly about qualifications, we need to know from you and everybody, what is it that makes good fitness professionals, good exercise professionals, if it's not just about qualifications. So we've got three speakers here today who I'm going to introduce. We've got Kevin Lane, Operations Director of Active Nation, and we've got Mark Sumner, Head of Learning and Development at DW Fitness First, DW, and we've also got Mark Sumner, Head of Learning and Development from, Paul Street, Head of Health and Fitness, you're there twice, at Serco. So we'll be addressing some of the questions to each of the panellists, but you'll have an opportunity to do that later. So today, as usual, we've heard about the huge opportunities for the sector, but also the massive challenges in relation to getting people active. But applying that to the front line and how we empower our workforce to assist in that process of getting more people more active more often. We've got a lot of uncertainty, obviously, around a number of areas, obviously Brexit being one of them. How we respond to the challenges that we've heard today will determine whether the sector continues to grow in the next 10 years or whether it will stagnate and not go anywhere and not take us to the place that we need to be in terms of earning and deserving the respect of the medical profession particularly. So what we want to do in this session is look at how we prepare people for the sector, not just for the workforce and who they're facing today with our customer base, but what happens in the next 10 years, and we need your insight into that. And we've got frontline professionals, health and fitness, we've got managers and leaders, and the needs are very different, and we need to factor that in. But the commonality is about changing lives, and it's about the expectations of our customers today, which is not just about getting people fit and active. People are expecting different things. People are expecting a more holistic approach. Another thing I took away from this morning was the concept of individualism, treating individuals as individuals, and the expectation that people need things tailored to them and they don't want to be invisible and part of a group. And all the data collection that goes on should enable us to do that. So how can we get our workforce to really work to tailor what they do to individuals rather than just groups? So, customer expectations, how are they changing? Have they changed in the last 5 years? How are they going to change in the next 10 years? What do we need to do to equip the workforce? We know that doctors' businesses are scrambling around, and the government, in terms of solutions to get people physically active. And the solution is here. The solution is in this building today about how we meet that opportunity to engage the wider population with physical activity. And the NHS long-term plan and the social prescribing that's going on, we need to think about how we can take advantage of that. What can we be doing as operators, as organisations, to grasp hold of those opportunities and link to the work that the NHS is doing in terms of social prescription? So, over to our three experts, because it's not about me talking today, we need to hear it from the front line. I'm going to move over to Kevin first of all. Kevin, as Operations Director, I just wanted to know a bit more about what that entails and the mission of Active Nation, particularly based on some of the things you were just telling me why you were up for some awards this evening.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Kevin Lane. I'm the Ops Director, and that's very deliberate. O stands for operations, P stands for people, and S stands for safety. So obviously people is the strong element which comes out of today. We're a charity. We're on a mission to persuade the nation to be active. We are campaigning the problem that we solve. We obviously want to get our supporters within our venues, but we also deliver a lot of programmes outside of those venues, outside of the four walls. My role is not so much on the campaigning side, it's more about, I guess, what we would call the retention side of things, which is ensuring that the delivery of service we give is as good as it can be to our supporters so that they stay longer. It's also to ensure that those supporters who have a good time tell others, so we get a referral process as well. The safety side, obviously, is just common sense about making sure that everybody is safe. But again, it's all about reputation and brand loyalty. One thing going wrong can be all over social media within seconds. So I think some of the things I took away from this morning, one of those elements was about how quickly your business can change just by one poor experience. So every experience has got to be absolutely spot on. So that's part of my element with the safety side of things. The people side, I'm responsible for how we develop our staff. We call them campaigners, but I'll use the word for staff for today. And that's right from the very sharp end right up to the board level. That's probably a good summary of what I do.
So in terms of that people development, is it technical expertise, people on the front line, and your managers and leaders? Is both all across the board? And so coming out of the four walls of the organisation, as you spoke about, how have you upskilled your workforce to do that? Whether you take on staff, whether you've upskilled your staff to make them more, they can do a broader range of activities?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's quite a challenging answer, I think. In an ideal world, we would all say we take on a new recruit at a fairly low level, and we upskill them and we develop them through the organisation, and that would be a goal, I think, of any good organisation. It makes common sense. It means you're only training them and developing them from a, if you like, a cultural side once. It also is probably far more cost effective to do that. The challenge is that sometimes there just aren't those opportunities to do that. Clearly there is a fairly linear route that a lot of professionals will follow. And if that route is just simply not available because of the size of the organisation, that does give you some constraints. So I think we have to accept actually within our industry, I think one of the points that was made earlier on today is about trying to retain professionals within our industry. And I think a lot of organisations get very hung up about retaining those individuals within their business, within their organisation. My view actually is, do you know what, if I can't provide an opportunity in my organisation for someone to develop, and they go on to another organisation, then I've played a part in their development, and I've played a part in the development of the industry. I know all of our directors and sort of senior managers and business managers in our organisation. Only one of those has sort of come up through the ranks, and even he was a couple of layers down and joined us from another organisation. So in a sense, we have to work together. We have to accept that if we can't provide an opportunity, then that employee might have to go to another organisation. The critical thing from my point of view is we retain them in the industry, because we all actually do have a shared common goal, which is to get the nation active. It's our mission statement, but actually we're all here really for the same thing principle. So we do try very hard to upskill and develop and look at the individual and see what else do they need to take them through the organisation. When we have to recruit from outside, to me the most fundamental part, and it goes back to what Vaughan said this morning, is that individual right for the organisation? Do they fit? Are they mission aligned? That is more important to me than their technical skills, because actually if they've got that same alignment, they want to be trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, then the technical side can be trained in afterwards.
I would agree. In terms of that comment earlier, many people can achieve a qualification and the knowledge and skills are fundamental, but how do you actually acquire the behaviours you need to encourage people to be physically active? Does that come from the qualification? Well, theoretically it should, and that's embedded within the content of the qualification and should be assessed, but in the reality that's just the starting point. So, like you learn to drive, then you go out and get your experience of working with people, but the audition factor that Vaughan mentioned earlier is, are they the right people? Because the people who make the best coaches are the people who can work with people and engage with people and empathise with people. So you're right, the technical skills are almost like, not an afterthought, but a secondary part of what you're looking for in terms of...
And I also think that actually, if you think about this, in 2030, what are our workforce going to look like in 10 years' time? I don't believe there'll be so many of them. I think there'll be less of them. Because I think artificial intelligence and all of that sort of tech is going to make a difference to our industry. It will shrink it to some degree. What we've got to get better at is that communication, the motivation, the interaction with individuals. As Jenny referred to earlier on about the hyper-personalisation, it's a good mouthful, isn't it? Where individuals will be expecting to get individual treatment. So because they believe that we know everything about them because of the data we're collecting. They will expect that personal touch service. And so we've got to think about how we change our staff and upskill them to deal with those types of skills. Okay? I think that's less technical and more about behavioural. Certainly within activation, as an example, our cultural alignment doesn't just start with mission and values, which most organisations have and we should have. But we've stressed our behaviours. We have something called brilliant behaviours. And that's very, very deliberate, it's a superlative, but it also talks about BR, building relationships, I, demonstrating integrity, L, leading by example, love it, that's the passion and enthusiasm, AA is our active nation values, and T is teamwork. And I believe if every one of our staff exhibit those behaviours, actually they're going to meet all the needs we'll have in the industry for the next 10 years.
And just one question before I move on, because we talked about inclusivity earlier, and there's a population out there that may not have been approached in terms of their spending power, the many individuals who have a disability in the UK, and how we focus on inclusivity in terms of what we do. We were talking about that earlier, so how do you make sure all of your frontline staff factor that in, and what's the best thing that they can do to make anyone welcome who comes through their door?
I think it's a really interesting point. Actually, if I can share a story about it. I had a conversation with a lady the other day. Who's an Asian lady, and she delivers training around cultural diversity, etc. And she showed me a booklet. It's a really, really simple booklet. She said, have a look at those questions. And I went through them, and I couldn't answer more than about 1 in 10, because I'm ignorant of the different marketplaces out there. And that's my fault. I should know more about it. So I think one of the tricks we've got to do is say, okay, what basics do we need? I had another example where I was talking to one of our business managers, who said actually there's a strong Polish element within that community. Now, how good would it be that when that person who's Polish comes in, and you can tell they're speaking Polish as they come in, if we just said good morning or good afternoon in Polish, how powerful would that be? How would that make them feel like they're part of it? And I think it's those little things, they don't have to be massive, but those little things which will start to make people feel inclusive. And I also think it's down to the representation of the workforce. And it's a challenge that we face in Active Nation, as most organisations do. How diverse is it? Does it include every sort of variety you can possibly have? Because that's what will make the difference. That's what will impact on that marketplace that we're perhaps not tapping into.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving on, Mark. Learning and development programmes, because I know DW Fitness First have a well-structured in-house learning and development programme. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the impact that it's had on your staff, and perhaps on the retention element of your workforce?
Yeah, so I work for DW Fitness First. I think it's points I started working for Fitness First and now DW Fitness First 14 years ago. And I had all sorts of roles throughout the thing. In fact, at one point I think I'd had more years, it was 10 years in, I had more than 10 roles along that period of time. I kept on getting caught out, so I had to change jobs. But I think that's important because I was fortunate to, even without maybe the formal structured development programs that maybe we have at the moment, there was still a great industry to work with and great people and doing something that really makes a difference. And I fell into the industry. I didn't choose, particularly after getting my degree, I didn't choose particularly to come and start working within the sector. But when I did it, it felt right, and it's the right place to be. So it's now my job to ensure that I give everybody the opportunity to be the best that they can be, whatever that might be. So I think even before we get on to retaining people and even the development program piece, it almost feels like it's 2 steps even further back around who we attract, and that's as a business, but as a sector as well. So who and how do we attract people, the right people that we want to do? How do we then recruit them until we then get onto that development stage to hopefully retain them, and or even not retain them, but at least give them the opportunity to be the best they can be, whether it's in the sector, whether it's in working for DW Fitness First, or whether it's working
just picking up on how do you attract them. So how do we, as a sector, make this environment that we operate in a viable long-term career opportunity for someone who, as we fell into it maybe, but how can we attract them? What is it about it that makes it a long-term prospect?
I think it's the why. It's that narrative, it's that story. And I think if we're able to convey that out there, again, this morning Vaughan was talking about, where his people come from, where those coaches come from. And it's from our members, it's from our customers, it's from our guests, it's from all of those people we have that unique opportunity to connect with. And potentially all too often, we'll recruit people or we'll attract people that have a passion for fitness, potentially, their sporting goals and things like that. But maybe we need to look at it slightly differently. If we're looking at more people, more active, more often, and really looking to impact the UK and participation, maybe we need to be looking more at people that actually are passionate about helping people, people that are passionate about connecting, right back to those really simple things. Again, I keep on referring to it because I was so impressed this morning. But was it Leanne or Leanne? Lisa Ann, apologies. Just an amazing story about maybe she didn't have the passion to be a fitness fanatic. However, you know what? She was great at connecting. She was great at talking to people. So I think that attraction piece, we need to get that story out around the why. Why is it amazing to work in this sector? And then once we have that, we then recruit off that. So we recruit off the values, exactly as you're speaking about, Kevin, those key fundamentals. And we stay strong. We stay strong with that because we know the skills and knowledge and those elements. That's our responsibility to build that development program, something that's transparent, clear from the first day you step into the organisation all the way up to the director level. It doesn't stop. It's not training to fill a gap. It's not, okay, we need more managers. Okay, we need management training. We need a quality induction program. It needs to go right throughout the business, because I feel sometimes, all too often, it's always an uphill battle, potentially because HR, L&D, people, whatever we want to package and call it, can sometimes come secondary to operations and sales and some of these things, and those natural challenges. And I was really pleased to hear, Kevin, how he defined his role around, for me, operations and people. They're one of the same thing. And until these elements around attracting, recruiting, development, retaining, reward recognition, all of these key factors become a true fundamental priority of businesses. And I'm talking from a private sector.
Yeah.
But that's going to be.
And in terms of it's attracting people, and you're looking for the right people at that interview stage or audition stage, as it was this morning. But it's from a training provider perspective as well, attracting the right people to do the right qualifications. Are they the right thing for them? But then is this the right job for them? And then they can thrive and flourish in that, with that opportunity. And something that was said this morning was, however much tech advances, whatever the advances in technology, it's the people in the moment who can have an impact on people, enhanced obviously by technology, but it's the opportunity we have, and everybody has been very passionate in this room about commit to the training and development of the people alongside the tech, but don't forget the people. Just moving on to Serco, because Paul, you've introduced, thinking of the diversity of the workforce, you've introduced 2 new programs, one for older adults and one for children within the organisation. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so the origin of these programs really came from the fact that we've sort of recognised the demographic profile in the gym environment has changed quite a bit over the last 3-4 years, and that perhaps our instructors are generally quite young and less experienced in terms of the softer skills that we've been sort of talking as a thread throughout today. So we recognised that there was a couple of gaps. One was the fact that we call them young people were not really. I suppose the knowledge gap there was quite confusing as to the information that was out in the sector. I felt that a number of our instructors were giving different answers to the same questions around how to train young people, even across one gym to another in the same area. And so what we did, we engaged with a company called Excelsior, and they helped us deliver a couple of training packages. And the first was with young people, just about giving them the knowledge and giving them sort of the accredited background skill sets, up-to-date knowledge as to how to deliver that to young people with confidence, with a really structured program that really slowed things down and actually gave them confidence to deliver that program. And allow young people to train with free weights, because some of our, I think you've got these centres where they've got, the free weight here has got no young people, keep out, and there's no reason why we need to do that. We just need to educate our teams to be able to cope with that and to make sure that the knowledge that they're getting is consistent. And I think with the older adult piece, that was a very different piece of training. The concept behind that was much more, less about knowledge, but more around empathy. And again, going back to one of the threads of today, is that a lot of our teams are quite young, and yet a lot of the people in our gym environment are actually not so much spring chickens anymore, more my demographic than theirs. And it's about recognising that the difference between older people, and as they go from anything from 55 to 75, how those physiological changes affect their body, but also that within that population age group, you can have some seriously fit people within that, but also you can have some very, the other end of the spectrum, people who are really just struggling with mobility issues. And it was about engaging with the fitness teams, and they came away with a really good spectrum of knowledge in terms of how that changes and how they can interact better with that age group. So that was key for us. We did actually, as with all good plans, I'd like to tell you this was a wonderful vision from start to finish, but you know I was lying if I said that. So,
I wanted to chip in there, because
please do.
when what you said heartened me, like the older adult and the different categories of the older adult. What one 60-year-old isn't another 60-year-old, and it's that, how do you promote physical activity to the older adult when it's so diverse? And I will go back, as not a spring chicken, I was a Group X instructor, but I became a 50-plus instructor back in the early 90s. And we were teaching people to mobilise their joints, and that was part of the warm-up. If someone gave that to me now, I might have something to say about it. So
exactly.
It's the breadth of knowledge that they need to have. Don't make me do that. Although that finger does actually need that, but leave that aside. Sorry, am I interrupting?
No, not at all.
And has that affected your recruitment strategy as well as your internal training for that breadth of programming?
Yeah, we did. Well, just to finish that one strand first, so we did actually add to that a digital training piece as well, because we realised it was about September time. We realised actually we'd missed a trick. In that one of the other big changes within our gym environments is that a lot of customers are coming in with technology, and not necessarily all our instructors are geared up to understand what that technology is, but more importantly, how we can integrate that. Because if you kind of hold back the tide, you become a rockbuster, don't you? You're not going to, this technology is not going away. So it wasn't just about understanding what they could do with their digital technology, their wearable devices in the gym environment. It was also, outside the gym environment, but what they could do in the gym environment and how we could actually integrate that to our own app. So it's quite a key piece for us in terms of making that embed rather than trying to say, well, no, we don't want them using that because they might not come to the gym anymore. It's going to happen, and we have to embrace that or become irrelevant. So yeah, sorry, back to you.
Thank you. And just picking up on something else, you talked about empathy, and if you're dealing with older individuals exercising, are young people the people to do that? May well be because of their interpersonal skills, but it's the empathy and the peer approach. Can that be more effective? And I know John would welcome me talking about the UK active research in terms of reimagining ageing and how we don't currently engage effectively with the older population and who we should be engaging with in terms of promoting physical activity. But the question is, should we be recruiting more older instructors and frontline professionals because of that ability to empathise and be peer-led in terms of peer-led exercise? And what are your thoughts across the board on that in terms of age range in the relation to diversity and whether it's happening?
I was going to say, I think the first bit is actually what we sort of started off by saying in terms of qualifications versus behaviours and personality. And actually, we get very hung up on the qualifications, and therefore, if you were an older adult who was interested in that sort of environment, you'd probably be put off because you think, I've got to get re-qualified. And let's face it, most of us, last time we did any qualifications would have been in our sort of late teens, early 20s. And so the thought of somebody at 50 taking another qualification is quite abhorrent, I suspect. And so that's where it comes back to this, actually making sure it's the right personality delivering it and actually trying to promote that. So I think the work you're doing there in terms of teaching younger staff how to interact with the older ones, it's sort of almost now the other way around. It's how can we get the right older people to work for us?
I think that's the next stage for us, is starting to go down that route. I mean, one of our instructors is 72 and he's fit, so he can do the flag and all this kind of stuff. It's incredible. But recruiting, that's the exception at the moment. And I think as an industry, we've got a bit of an image problem because we are so young in terms of the instructor age group. In trying to engage instructors at that level is quite difficult. So we've done some work in terms of what we call job ad coding. So you actually take AdWords and you can actually code those words as to be, particularly with gender, you can use certain words in an ad that are much more masculine than feminine. We've actually seen some of our ads swing completely from being 2/3 male applicants to 2/3 female applicants just by changing the code wording in that, using more words like understanding and empathy as opposed to just challenging and kind of masculine words and all that kind of
Picking
stuff.
up nicely on Tanya's session earlier, that can make a huge amount of difference.
Yeah. And I think the other one is the piece with the sort of industry as a whole. We've always tried to think of our industry as only being a primary form of employment, but actually there's a lot of people now, and I think this is a real opportunity just starting to come through, I think, with people who are having second and third careers, and actually what we could do is engage with those people who are, actively target those people who have already retired, firemen, policemen, whatever else it might be. It could be somebody who's finished and it is actually the wealth isn't a problem to them anymore. They're trying to do something that's kind of sits with their principles better, and I think our industry is absolutely perfect for that. And I think by engaging those people in the second and third careers, we can really target that age group and perhaps map out our career structures a bit better, because I don't think it's very clear from outside in. A lot of people in our classes don't even think that actually that's something I could do. I could actually be an instructor in here. They kind of come along and it never really occurs to them. But not only that, then what the opportunities are beyond that, in terms of whether it be PT, referral development, all those things that are really a Bluetooth from this morning. So they're all giving something back, and I think there's a real opportunity for us there in that sector.
Just picking up on those career pathways over to Mark for the last question before we head to the group, because you talked about falling into, didn't sort of think about the journey. Do you think that there are clearer pathways now across, well, not just in your own operation, but across the board? Are we getting there?
I think slowly.
What's left to do?
I think it's, if I'm honest, I think it's still a bit confusing. I think for our job is to give people choice and opportunity to thrive in whatever they do, as opposed to feel we have to force people down a certain route. However, we also need to have transparent opportunity to say, this is where you start, this is a career opportunity for you, and it's transparent, it's fair, and it's open to everybody. However, we have to give them that opportunity for it not to purely be linear, because exactly as Kevin said, we don't have the spaces. There's only so many CEOs, there's only so many directors, there's only so many heads of. So we need to ensure that we still allow people to be the best that they can be in whatever it is, and let them work towards their strengths. And you know what? If they then get to that stage where we've taken them as far as we can go as a business, as a sector as a whole, you know what? Controversially, I'm quite happy for them maybe to leave and go and do something else, because we fulfilled our side of the thing. And you know what? We go back to our why. If we really believe that, and we know the value that is to well-being and how much we all love this industry, that will probably bring them back, and we've seen that time and time again, and I'm sure other people will.
I'll just echo that. I think that's absolutely appropriate. If somebody leaves you to go to do something else, it probably means not so much that you haven't got a career path, it means actually they weren't right for you in the first place if they've gone out of the industry. If they go to a competitor, then absolutely fine, because all they're doing is they're taking the skills they've learned and applying it with a different organisation, but in the same arena. So we should be celebrating that to some degree, rather than
we've done a good job.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the transferability is key, isn't it? And it's not always about just going up, but sometimes it's about going up and sideways and developing more skills as you're moving sideways with a different breadth in a different organisation. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to you guys now. You've got a case study. It's only brief on your desk. You're only going to have about 8 to 10 minutes. What I'd like you to do, first of all, think in your groups. Do you have any questions for the panellists, and specifically for each of the panellists that can come out of your discussions over the next few minutes, but also looking at the case study, what strikes you about that workforce? What do they need? How would you tackle the issue presented? Doesn't have to be long-winded. We'll only pick on a few groups, but we just want to get some more insight, bring everybody into this as well as our great panellists today. So I can give you, let's go for 5 minutes initially. Thank you. Let's come back together so we can finish the session on time and let you all get off. Just before we go round in terms of case study, insights, comments you want to make, any burning questions for any of the panellists outside of that before we start? Feel free. I've got more.
It's a quick question. Lots of people have been talking about sort of recruiting and recruiting the right people. However, most of the organisations that exist in the world have a shed load of people who already work for them, and you can't just get rid of them all if they've got the wrong attitude, etc., and then recruit a load of other people. Do you think that attitude, if you want to use that word, can be developed within an individual, or do you feel we just have to slowly, over a course of perhaps many years, part ways with individuals like that?
What's that one?
I'm happy to give my opinion on it. I think it can be very difficult to do, but I believe it can be done around some of those behaviours. But I think we need to make it clear what those behaviours are. We use something called performance standards that looks at your knowledge, skills, and behaviours. But I think it's then staying true to that. So I think if their behaviours don't fit, then I think it's fair to move them on and say, you know what, you're maybe not in the right place to be doing that. But I think as long as it's clear and transparent what they are, and once you get that critical mass of people, all people in the same place thinking the same way, it starts to almost get that movement. But I think as leaders in the business, it's our role to ensure, one, that everybody knows what great looks like. So that is what we expect from you. That is what we want you to be. And then it's our job to almost try and help them get A, so help them achieve that. Not everybody will, and not everybody will be able to make those adjustments to their behaviours and some of those core values. However, that's the intent, but if they're not able to, then I think we need to make those difficult decisions and move at that stage.
Yeah. It's one of the hardest things to change, isn't it, at times, but, and probably a matter of trust as well in terms of working with people so they understand why you want the behaviours to change. The new apprenticeships are assessing behaviours, but that's at that point, it's what's happening further on the line. So thank you.
I'd just like to ask the panel, obviously we've had years and years of austerity, and obviously a lot of private companies now that used to rely on management fees have no longer got that luxury anymore. And we're talking about sort of empowering the workforce. I'm just wondering what the panel think of, have you had to make any sort of staffing cuts, to sort of, because you've got no management fees anymore, and just what the panel think that will impact on actual standards and customer service, which we talked about today.
Yeah, it's a real challenge, given the percentage that payroll makes up of that cost base. There's no two ways, that is a huge challenge, and yes, we've had to make cuts. It's about trying to make cuts in the areas where you impact the service the least, and it's that balance, isn't it? So we said earlier about technology versus, versus the human interaction piece. And I think there are a lot of transactional, a good example being the kind of swipe gate entry thing, where actually that customer doesn't really need a huge amount. Actually they just want to get in fast. They want to get their work done and they want to leave. And if you say hi and goodbye, they're happy. There's other people who need a lot more. So it's about focusing, I think, that and being a lot, as an industry, getting smarter. I think we're quite a way there. There's more to go. So we're just getting smarter about how we focus that interaction, and particularly in the gym spaces. One of my passions is you get the gym instructor who speaks to the sort of the small percentage of people that come 4 times a week that they know by name, but actually not focusing on the new people, and that is completely inversely proportional to exactly how we want it to work. So it's about rebalancing, I think, as much as anything.
I think you have to cut the cloth to suit. If you remain true to your mission, then it's less of a mission, because I think the more people you get active, the more you can balance the books. I think that's the element. You've got to be quite bold, you've got to be quite brave, you've got to be risky as well, and say, actually, this might cost us more than we'd like it to, but we know what the outcome will be. The outcome will be more people being active, and it's more people active, then we know by implication, and the books will start to balance. It is a challenge, but actually, as an industry, we've had challenges for the last 50 years or whatever, and we will keep bouncing back. And we've got to think positively, not what will we do because of, but actually how will we react, how will we respond, how will we go forwards and adapt. And for adaptability, not only as organisations, but as individuals as well. So if we talk about career pathways, actually we were just saying in the break how a lot of people, they start in that direction and then they find something changes them and they go that direction and they go that direction. So it is all about adaptability and change.
One more question before our case studies.
Thank you. Dave Pugh. Jenny, you mentioned apprenticeship standards there. I just wondered what view the panel had on in terms of the apprenticeship standards. My question really is around the apprenticeship levy, which I assume, given the size of the companies you're all paying, is do you regard this as an opportunity or an unwanted tax?
How long have we got?
We've got 2 minutes.
I think, from my point of view, I would rather that money was ring-fenced to use for people development, full stop. The fact that we are very much constrained as to how we can spend it is a thorn in my side. I would much rather spend that investment on developing the cultural element of our business and the behaviours of individuals rather than focusing on very strict frameworks, albeit that I do support the frameworks that have been developed and I'm sure we'll continue to do them. But it is frustrating that you have to spend your money in that direction. I don't know how you do it, I don't know how you manage it in other ways, but that's...
They do it in Scotland, don't they? They don't, it's not confined to apprenticeships. And it's, my own comment on that, wouldn't it be wonderful if the levy could be spent on any training and development, because then you tailor it to the specific needs of the organisation and you're not constrained just by the standards that there are, particularly in light of the speed of getting standards approved by the Institute for Apprenticeships. So, you know, if we had more flexibility there, it would become less of a tax and more of an opportunity. But as things stand, we kind of have to make the best of the situation, and it's maximising the standards that are out there, being creative about how they're developed and assessed. And I think I heard some examples at the L&D network last night where it can and does work very well. Valentine's gave a really good example of that. But it depends, I think, on the organisation and the training needs of the organisation.
It does also come back to the earlier question. If the payroll's already under massive pressure, the point, I think the apprenticeship, it is a double-edged sword. I think the challenge with it is we need to get those apprentices up to speed as quickly as possible so that they're in a productive role where you're carrying an additional resource that you really can't afford. That becomes a real challenge for an organisation because you just haven't got that flexibility in the payroll. So I think if we can get over that hurdle, I think it becomes much more of an opportunity to get up to speed quicker.
I think one opportunity off the back of it is at least it's made us focus on it, right? Because now it's coming out of our pockets, so it becomes a key point on the agendas with our financial directors and with the business as a whole. So it's up for us to work within the current constraints to get the best out of it. We're currently combining all of our frontline development programs, whether you're in retail, leisure, and having them combined now so they actually all of our programs mapped against the standards equate to a level 2 customer service practitioner, as well as having it to a level 2 fitness instructor. So it's hard work and it's a lot of bureaucracy and difficulty there. So I think the idea would be for me to have that more flexibility. But that's glass half full. Yeah. At least we're all talking about it and focusing on it and
who wants to throw it away and give it back to the government? And who knows, with government changes, what will happen, and will the flexibilities continue? There's been some changes in how the levies used, etc. So long may that continue. I need to go to your case studies because it would welcome your insight as well as the panellists. So any volunteers to give a very brief resume of what they looked at and what their solutions were? I will volunteer you if you don't volunteer yourselves. I'm looking at Mark between his
I knew you were going to say that. Volunteers, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. I mean,
there's a danger that you simply reflect and project everything the guys have been saying, because it's self-evident, isn't it, that we need to be we need to be programming against the demography of the population, and in order to be able to do that, our instructors need to be of the population. So it might be ladies-only sessions, it could be under 5s, and so on and so forth. Mark particularly talked about ambassadors, getting our message out there in particular communities. BME in particular is quite difficult to penetrate in that regard. So yeah, it's everything that you've been talking about. Programming against demography, qualifications against that programming, and getting our message out there through ambassadors within the community.
Which case study was that? Which number?
That was case study number 1.
Number 1. So who's got number 2? Thank you. Table behind.
Thanks. Yeah, we've got case study number 2, which is very different, seemingly, to yours. This was about a startup, well, seemingly a new provider into the UK. He's 18 months old, and they were having problems with their staff leaving, and they anecdotally reported management that staff are not content with the training and development. And we talked about the fact that, especially when you've got somebody that is a new startup in the market, one of the main things that they need to focus on, but it's very easy to drop in the drive for sales and the drive to get the company set up, is culture. So back to that point about creating the right culture, creating the right values for the company, and creating that vision. And one of the great ways of doing that is to involve your people along the way, because no doubt in a startup in the first 2 or 3 years you'll get stuff wrong, and it's okay to stand up and say we've got it wrong. But it's really easy if you turn around to your teams and say, well, you've got it wrong with us. So part of it's on you, and we'll change and we'll develop. But bring them along for the ride means that they can't say they didn't know, and that you're not looking after them and you're not thinking about them. So yeah, first and foremost, culture, but then looking at telling people what the opportunities are, development plans, training plans, making sure that you are focusing on the people as well as the sales, the operations, the cash flow, the balance sheet, everything else that goes with setting up a company.
Yeah, that's the importance of people again, isn't it? Across the board. Completely agree in terms of cultures at the outset. What's your purpose? What's the culture? What are the values? And you live those throughout the whole journey with the staff. Thank you. Anyone got case study number 3 further back? Volunteer back table, a back table. There's a mic coming.
Hello, Stuart Martin from Active Nation. Our case study was largely aimed at a company that was going through a rebranding exercise, as I was reading it. And the views of the team was this was a lot of cultural work that's been talked about. My simple view was it was a first who, then what approach. This case study was about to go on an exciting journey that could only go on it when it had the right people in the right place to do the right thing.
Yeah, the right people. Any other volunteers for any other 2 case studies? But from this morning, you know, the qualifications don't make good coaches. The other comment was people make good coaches. It's always coming back to the people, isn't it? The right people in the right place, and nurturing them to get to that right place. One more. Case study 4 or 5? Okay. I'll leave it there. I'm not going to force you. We need to go. Any final questions for any of the panel before I close? Anything you didn't get the opportunity to ask earlier? Okay, they've answered a lot of questions. So if you can give a big round of applause. Thank you also for your participation. I know it gets more tiring as the day goes on, and I'm sure you want to get away and have a beer or a glass of wine or a sparkling water. And if you're like me, you'll need the 2 hours to get ready for tonight. It takes a while. So enjoy that. You need to be back here by 6 o'clock for networking drinks. You haven't got long. So be back on time. It's looking lovely in the big room. Some of you in this room might be finalists tonight, so I hope you're feeling okay. Have a drink, steady your nerves. Look forward to seeing you this evening. It should be fun. Thank you very much.